Welcome to the Sko Show. It is the time for the season to start. So we are up in Boulder at Peckish, up on the hill. Of course, you're probably familiar with Peckish if you're met up in Boulder and on the hill. Now just a couple steps further down, 3 times the size. New menu. Obviously, you still get an expanded menu, the pizza here, the wings, everything you know about, but now 3 times bigger, but still on the hill. So make sure you check it out. We'll talk more about Peckish in a bit. I'm Sean Drotar. This is Matt Smith. Matt, obviously, been plugged into the CU program for a very, very long time. We've had the opportunity to work together at a couple of different places in our past. And here we are up in Boulder, ready for another season in just about, in fact, even I can do this, Matt, 49 hours until the season begins against Georgia Tech, 2 teams that have never met on the field, but of course have a significant history.
I was impressed that you didn't need a calculator to do that.
Yeah, I can do 2 days and plus 1.
Yeah.
Got it.
There is some history here, but for all intents and purposes, you're talking about 2 teams on opposite sides of the country for the most part.
Right.
Georgia Tech being in Atlanta, and it should be a great game. I mean, you're talking about fever pitch is at an all-time high with this Colorado program, and Georgia Tech is an ACC sleeper themselves. I mean, that's a program that everybody's talking about Clemson, everybody's talking about Miami, but do not overlook the Yellow Jackets in the ACC. They took Georgia to 8 overtimes in Athens last year. That's not a fluke.
And when you look at it, well, that was last year. Well, yeah, but here's the problem. On the offense, Georgia Tech returns 86.6% of its passing production, 83.3% of its rushing yards.
Right.
And it's led by 2 obviously very, very talented players, Haynes and Haynes King, the quarterback, of course, and Jamal Haynes, the running back. On the ESPN rankings of where they ranked each of these players, both of them were ranked in the top 10 for quarterbacks and running backs. So you're talking about a 6th-year senior in the quarterback King, very, very skilled guy. We'll obviously get into him over the course of the program. But basically, you're realizing if you're the Buffs, you're facing a top 10 quarterback and a top 10 running back.
Yes.
And by the way, a team that does not make very many mistakes. They allowed 9 sacks last year, 9, and they turned over the ball 10 times all season. This is an experienced offense. It's productive. They do not make mistakes. They do not let their quarterback get hit. So if you see you trying to in this revamped defense here, especially on the defensive line, you have to expect that you're not going to be able to get a lot of pressure. And so you're not going to be able to force the action defensively. This is going to be one of the big challenges, especially for the start of the game. You and I agree. The first quarter is pivotal. The Buffs, a 4.5-point underdog in this point. To me, that sounds about right. But I can see it get away from the Buffs early if the score gets away from them early. This has to stay close, at least in the first half. You cannot let Tech get off to a fast start, or the Buffs will be chasing all game, and that's a recipe for disaster.
Well, you're 100% right. And I think a big part of the problem is that Colorado on the other side, whereas Georgia Tech brings back so much experience, CU has to replace 16 to 18 of 22 starters on either side of the football. There is a lot of turnover there, okay? So while I think there's some optimism because, well, this was the worst rushing team in the country in consecutive years, now you have a team that has revamped and actually tried to invest in their running game now that Shedeur and Travis and that entire coalition has moved on. So you're absolutely right. It's the start of this game. Slow starts have been somewhat of a bugaboo for Coach Prime in 2 years. And when you look at a Georgia Tech team who's going to come in more experienced, as he said, smoother, most likely with their operation, you would just assume that means Colorado's got to figure things out on the fly and do it pretty quickly. And so when I look at Colorado and you bring up the first quarter, the reason for that is I don't think they're built to come back this year, not to the degree that they have been. Okay.
Right. I mean, Salter's not the kind of quarterback. Shedeur Sanders obviously kind of played. I described it, last year. He played a little bit like Russell Wilson plays. And I know for Broncos fans in the overlap, they're looking at it going, ugh. But there's similarities there.
Yeah.
Creates, rolls out to his right, extends the play, looking for a kill shot down the right, generally on the right side. And when you have a Travis Hunter or DK Metcalf, as the case may be, you can find that. But that's not Salter's game per se. He is part of the revamped running game. In fact, getting things done with his legs is probably going to be a major factor in this Buffs offense in what will be Salter's last season. Now, no eligibility after this year, but when you talk about the ability to get the ball into the end zone, he's been outstanding. 66 touchdowns in the last 2 seasons. That tied, mentioned the Clemson, Cade Klubnik, 66 as well. That's the best 2 in the last 2 seasons in all of college football. So you're talking about a guy that finds a way to get into the end zone. But keep in mind, when you're talking about running quarterbacks, this is two of the best running quarterbacks, both Salter and King in touchdowns, two of the best in the country since 2013.
The question to me
2023, pardon me.
No, you're fine. The question to me is which Kaidon Salter shows up. That's the question, because
and in the first game on a new in a new everything,
right? It's a big stage, bright lights, ESPN, and I don't know. Maybe luckily Auburn and Baylor play consecutively, so maybe not every eyeball is going to be on Colorado. But you do have to kind of think back to the North Dakota State game last year. You had a team that was experienced, had been together a while, same coaching staff, and they kind of roll in. The only difference for Georgia Tech is defensively they changed defensive coordinators. So outside of that, Colorado does know what to prepare for. But when you talk about Kaidon and you look at his numbers, junior year, 30 touchdowns, 5 picks through the air, had 1,000 yards on the ground, and I want to say maybe 10 touchdowns rushing, whereas last year, all those numbers went in half.
Yeah.
1,500 yards passing or 1,800 yards as opposed to 2,800. You're talking about 30 touchdowns through the air, now down to 15. Rushing, he had 1,000 yards in his sophomore campaign, only 500 last year. Now their roster got picked over from a team that went 13-1 his sophomore season. So he's won a lot. But at the same time, when you remove some of that talent, the numbers and the production kind of dipped, and their offensive coordinator remained the same.
Yeah.
So now coming into this system, it will be the most talented group that he's played with. Understand that. The most talented group of players around him that he's experienced.
How much does this offensive line? It's funny. I'm going to stop using the term revamped because everything is revamped, not only here in this program, but college football in general. Everybody, it's just every year everyone's reinventing their team. But the bright side is for the Buffs, when Deion Sanders came in to take over this program and made things through the transfer portal, you had major coaches, Dabo Swinney, for example, saying like, you can't build a program this way. Well, here's the thing. Sanders was ahead of the curve because this is how everybody builds their program. And it was enough to chase some of the longtime coaches out of college football, realizing
100%.
We're not going to do that anymore. But this is the reality. So what was a challenge for the Buffs a couple of years ago, and that was somewhat unique to them, and the idea of bringing in all these new players and having to microwave some sort of chemistry, that's no longer unique to Colorado. Every team does this, but as we talked about in this game, at least on offense, Georgia Tech brings back almost everybody. So for the Buffs, now a new quarterback, new offense.
Yes.
Obviously, he's a dual threat guy. He's an option runner. You have an offensive line that is big and strong. The projected starting offensive line for the Buffs, not a joke, folks. The average size is 6'5", 328.
Right.
That dwarfs the Denver Broncos. You're talking about a monumental line, and a lot of them with athleticism, but that's a big difference for Salter too. Can they generate a running game with Salter and, quite frankly, a couple of returners in Dallin Hayden and Michael Welch? They did bring in a new talent. How do you see the running game stacking up?
Well, it's a good question, and I think that really remains to be seen until we actually see it. That's something that I've been harping on all summer. It's like, I get it. We're bringing in Marshall Faulk, right? You've revamped this offensive line. You have that dual threat running quarterback, but
I want to see some bully ball.
I need to see it translate onto the field. And certainly we've seen it in practice. They have constructed a run pass option offense. It was kind of that way with Shedeur, but he didn't really excel at faking the run. And I think that everybody understood that with their quality of offensive line, 9 out of 10 times he wasn't going to hand that thing off. It was going to be a little quick screen to Jimmy Horn or Travis or what have you. So what we're seeing this year is I think you're going to see a balanced attack. I think you're going to see teams, yes, running back wise, I'm concerned about the depth in that room and, to be honest, overall talent. But they brought in DeKalen Taylor from FCS and Incarnate Word. He's a water bug, and he's got a home run hitting potential if you can give him the space to do it. The hope here for the program is that you've got the running quarterback. You do have a revamped offensive line, which, in my opinion, is the most improved group year over year. They still need to prove it. Obviously, chemistry, they've never played together. I mean, we just talked about this. So that unit, more than anything else on the team, they have to have some sort of symbiosis to really be successful, which in years past, they couldn't really find that right group of 5. Now, with Jordan Seaton at left tackle, they've got Xavier Hill, who's all conference coming in from Memphis at left guard. Their center is going to be Zarian McGill, at least to start. Right tackle, he was a Louisiana Tech transfer, McGill at center. Right guard is going to be Xylon Chrysler, who was all-conference honorable mention in the Big Ten at Illinois. And then at right tackle, you bring in Larry Johnson from LSU, who we talked to George Hegeman, one of the co-offensive line coaches, the other day. And Hegeman, former Super Bowl champion, he is a mountain of a man. He went up to him, Johnson, and said, well, now I get what it's like to be stuck behind me my whole life. And so, yes, there's size there. You have the running quarterback there. And while they may not have necessarily invested as much as I think they should have in the running back position, their hope is that the dynamic attack and making defenses guess is going to open up that running game when you combine Kaidon Salter's ability to move the ball on the ground with his legs.
Yeah, so I mean, there's a lot to like about the potential. Obviously, balance would be very helpful. One of the challenges for the Buffs is it was not balanced. Obviously, last year, dead last in the conference in rushing per game, and it was by a lot.
A lot.
And not only in yards per game, but in yards per carry. This was an offense that couldn't run, despite the fact you have pretty big size. Now, obviously, you have Jordan Seaton, who is going to be up for every major award on the left side.
Right.
You'd like to see a bit of a power game, knowing that Pat Shurmur is calling this offense. This is a little bit new for him, although he is an experienced guy. But he does know how to call a power running game. He's done that before. That is such a shift, though, from what we've seen since Deion Sanders took over as head coach. It feels very much I'll believe it when I see it, but it also feels like the best formula for success given the quarterbacking, because if you run with your running backs, now all of a sudden the dual ability for Salter becomes doubly dangerous.
100%, because like you said, you bring back Dallin Hayden, you bring back Micah Welch, and those two guys, quite frankly, didn't have much success last year. Okay, so you're betting on bigger years for both of them and healthier years. Both of them missed significant amount of time last year. We already know Dallin Hayden broke his hand in practice. He's going to miss at least the first week. He had a little procedure on that, so he'll be out. That's been announced. Now, Micah Welch, he's a guy who came in as a freshman, a lot of expectations, but just not enough there yet. And I think in year two now with 6 months with Coach Falk, that I think there's been some strides made there. And here's the other part of this. They hired Andrew Swayze, who's the former strength and conditioning coach down at Miami when Miami was going, the Hurricanes. Everybody is bigger. I'm talking about significantly, to a point where I can't actually give you an accurate comp of another strength and conditioning coach who made such progress over the summer, which is ironic because every year, every time a new strength and conditioning coach gets hired, all we hear about is, well, oh my God, the progress they made this summer. But when you see little Isaiah Harge out there looking defined, you're like, oh, okay. And you see Jordan Seaton and Quinn Barnes on the defensive line. He's lost 30 pounds and is now their best defensive lineman. They have made some real strides with conditioning. And so to that point, that bully ball, the physicality, they typically lost the battle of physicality last year in their losses. And we talk about,
and that's on both lines.
Both lines. Big stages, Kansas, Kansas State, BYU, probably the three most physical teams they played. They got out physical by all three of them.
Time.
They did.
That can't happen anymore for this matchup. You know, if you count the also receiving votes in the preseason polls, basically Georgia Tech is 31. The Buffs are 48. To me, that sounds about right. We'll get into a couple more details of it because on the offensive side, it feels like the Buffs should be able to move the ball. It feels like they should be able to score. It is going to be the defensive side that I think that defines this because of the Georgia Tech talent. But I want to remind you, you can see right over our heads, we are at the brand new Peckish up onto the hill in Boulder. Delighted to be here. It smells so good up here. I am so hungry because we did Valley Sports Today up here as well. Delighted to get a chance to do that. So I've been sitting here for hours just wanting to just stuff my face with wings, pizza, new menu out there as well. So 3 times the size of the original preferred dining partner of CU Athletics. And remember, if you can't make it up here to Boulder for the new Peckish right up here, you can still go to the one in the Denver Tech Center, Bellevue Station. All of the same things, of course. Terrific beers on tap. Lots of televisions and opportunity to watch every game out there. Great place for parties. If you can't make it to the game, Peckish is a terrific option because who doesn't like beer, pizza, and wings with their football? Let's be honest. 2 locations. Check them out at Peckish. So delighted to have them as a partner on the show. A little bit of stuff here for Haynes King. So let me give you some of the information here. Last year, he battled some injuries, and their star running back to Jamal Haynes battled some injuries. Both were still successful. King last year, how's this? 2,114 passing yards, 14 touchdown passes, and a 73% completion. That's all good. but just 2 picks in the night in those 11 games. So how about this? That means 2,000 plus passing yards, 10 touchdown passes, 70% completion or better, and 2 or fewer interceptions in the season. Only one player in D1 has done that since 1956.
That's
almost
impressive.
70 years. And I get it. You look at the 2,000 and say, okay, that's not a big number. But again, he was hurt. You're talking about a guy that does not make mistakes, that gets it done with his legs, that also is a very efficient passer, more so than Salter. And knowing you can have the running game that they have too. And on top of that, Jamal Haynes is not the only runner. The defensive line for the Buffs has been a source of some frustration ever since Deion Sanders came in. Obviously, it's tough to rebuild from where they are. They get the transfer Jaheim Otis coming in from Ohio State with an opportunity. Alabama, pardon me.
Yeah.
An opportunity to change the dynamic there. But to my mind, when you look at all of this, there's a lot of talk about the quarterbacks, a lot of talk about the offense. The defensive line, to me, is going to be probably the single biggest deciding factor on whether this team makes a bowl or not.
Well, I think that's a good point. And specifically for this game, I think it really does come down to who stops the run more, because both these teams want to do similar things, right? And there's
proof that Georgia Tech can do it. There's not proof yet that the Buffs can do it.
Well, to a degree, right? I mean, there were a couple big games last year where they got gashed. I think about Kansas State and Kansas specifically.
Yeah.
Even BYU got them. However,
Devin Neal's still running out there somewhere.
They went into Central Florida and locked up a team that had averaged over 320 yards a game prior to that.
RJ Harvey, as a matter of fact.
RJ, now current Denver Bronco, and KJ Jefferson, who's a dual threat quarterback. So they've got an ability to do it, and I'm pretty bullish on what they're bringing to the table defensive line-wise. The only guys they have to replace are Chidozie Nwankwo and Shane Cokes. Now, both those guys ate up a lot of space and were run stoppers. But when you have Anquin Barnes, who's made the jump, another Alabama transfer, you talked about Jaheim Otis. He's not going to be a huge factor to start the year. I think you're looking at maybe game week 4 or 5 where they start to really rotate him in, but they're 7-8 deep, and they're all seniors. We were talking to Warren Sapp, who's one of the co-defensive line coaches, and he said the first thing he did when he got into the room, he said, all right, where are my seniors? And everybody's hands shot up.
38 players on this Buffs roster are in their final year of eligibility. 38. That is by far the most in college football, because the next one is Mississippi with 30.
Absolutely.
I mean, so you're talking about a lot of guys with this is their final chance to take a run at this. And some of the folks you've seen in the transfer portal, I was super impressed with Martavius French in the middle, looked great in the black and gold game in the spring, really looked like a dynamic guy.
Linebacker.
You're also looking at some of the additions, Tafik Bayard, I think is going to be able to step up. We know how good DJ McKinney is, Carter Stoutmeyer. There is a lot to like about this defense. If the line can at least generate pressure, preferably up the middle, and if they can make sure that the running games don't go off on another team, because obviously when you can get the running game going, now you can do whatever you want on a football field. I don't care what the defense says. That's why balance is so important, and it's why the Buffs had challenges too. But this defense, I think it has a lot of speed, has a lot of lateral speed, and a lot of ability, and I think they have some ball hawks, but they have to be able to get a little bit of pressure on the quarterback to do it, and that probably won't happen in this game. So we have to look at a team that only gave up 9 sacks last year, and you have a mobile quarterback. He's going to be tough to get to. But that there's this game against Georgia Tech, and then there's the season. And you talked about the impact for Otis later. So not only what in this game, but going forward, what would you see on Friday, good, bad, or indifferent, that would make you say, okay, I know a little bit more about how this defense is going to function?
Not getting absolutely gashed in the running game. I think that's
a good start.
And so we talk about Anquin Barnes, another transfer from Alabama last year. Coach Sapp challenged him to lose 30 pounds this offseason. He did it. He looks like a monster. Now, next to him is going to start Amari McNeil. McNeil last year, I think it was after Texas Tech, was the Big 12 Defensive Player of the Week. So there's been flashes there. It's just about consistency. And when you're bringing in wave after wave, you're talking about the team that led the Big 12 in sacks last year in Colorado.
Yeah.
And they really didn't lose a ton.
Arden Walker's explosiveness. There's
first team all Big 12.
Yeah.
You heard it here first. Arden Walker is set for a monster season. He looks fantastic in camp. Samuel Okunlola is a potential future pro. Now, they also have Quincy Wiggins, who was an LSU transfer last year. This guy is going to win the off-the-bus competition. He's just yoked, okay? I mean, that's how big this guy is. He's just, as Coach Prime said last year, looks like Tarzan, not necessarily playing like that. We got to get him to play like Tarzan is kind of their approach with him. And I think he will actually have a significant impact. I expect him to start at edge. We also have to remember Keaton Wade returns. He was kind of a non-factor. He came over with his brother Destin. Kentucky transfers, really wasn't a factor. And then midway through the year, shows up at Arizona with, I think, 2 or 3 sacks. And everybody just went, where has he been?
Right.
He played so well, they burned his red shirt last year. And now, so you've got a solid rotation up along the front. That doesn't concern me as much as maybe the depth at linebacker concerns me.
Linebacker
and the depth
is
at
an
safety
issue.
also concerns me. Outside of that, Robert Livingston's defense was fantastic in year 1 as his debut as a defensive coordinator. And Sean, if they get better in year 2, I don't know that they will necessarily get better, but if they do, I don't think he sees a year 3 in Boulder.
Yeah, that's obviously the concern is that Livingston's been really good. And obviously when there was the nervousness about Deion Sanders' health scare, the idea of what would happen, and presumably you would see, Pat Shurmur as the familiarity. But I look at it and I do look at Livingston and think, hey, you hope that Prime stays for the whole length of his contract and everything. But if you look at Livingston as a guy that they correctly identified, plays defensive backs coach for the Bengals. They brought him over here to run the defense. He has done everything you want, everything. And maybe when you're talking about the ace in the hole, there's all these Hall of Famers on the coaching staff. I get that. Livingston, to me, is the guy that last year and probably this year is the most important assistant.
Oh, easily. And there's a reason he got paid as CU's highest paid assistant ever. He earned it, right? And Coach Prime knows that, hey, if I want to keep this guy around.
You just talked to some of the players about Livingston, who sometimes comes down and runs some of the exercises and drills with them. That's the kind of coach that the guys look at and they're like, I'm going to run through a wall for this guy because he's with us.
I can tell you from a personal level, getting to know him, he's the best guy. I would love to play for him. He's a player's coach. So yes, defensively, it's a big deal, Sean. I mean, they've got to show up, and that's where they need to hang their hat this year. If one thing is going to be consistent game to game to game, it's how they come to play defensively, because they do have so much senior leadership on that side. Now, the experience all being together, there's still a lot of major contributors. Carter Stoutmire is going to start, who's played quite a bit. DJ McKinney was opposite Travis Hunter all of last year. He could be a top 5 corner in the country, no joke. Preston Hodge, by the grace of Diego Pavia, was able to come back for another year because of Diego Pavia's JuCo ruling that essentially said if you went to JuCo, it doesn't count anymore. So he's back at the nickel. The opposite corner will be between R.J. Johnson and Teion Parks. R.J. was a returner. They had him at safety. Long, rangy guy. Like, this is an NFL body in a cornerback. Can he get there? We'll see. Teion Parks coming over from Illinois State, another guy who's had tons of pass breakups in his career. I'm pretty bullish on what they can do. Now, again, you talked about Tawfiq Byard a little bit earlier. Younger brother of Kevin Byard, who's an all-pro safety. I mean, the bloodlines here are fantastic. However, just a sophomore, and beyond that, not a ton of depth. So I think on Friday, you're going to end up seeing Ben Finnesseth start opposite of Carter Stoutmire. Now, Ben Finnesseth's one of the OBs, the original Buffs, a guy who was here pre-prime.
One of the few that held on, right?
I think he might be the only one left now that Charlie Offerdahl is done with football.
Yeah, off to dentist school, right?
Right. And so we'll see what happens there. That spot concerns me, because an offensive coordinator is going to see Ben and go, let's see if you can run. Let's test you. So there will be some stuff early and over the top. And again, just because Georgia Tech is so good running the football, don't overlook Eric Rivers, who is one of the most highly touted receiver transfers of the portal coming in this season. There's some talent for Georgia Tech on the offensive side of the football. So yes, it is a big test. And to your point, they got to be ready right away. You can't ease into this. It's not like I'm going to dip my toe in the pool. This is full on, high dive, banana hammock, and we're out there for everybody to see.
On the other side of when you're talking about receivers, Malik Rutherford, 60 catches away from breaking Georgia Tech's all-time record. So you're talking about a guy that's been productive, that's been out there and done it. And so there is a lot of talent. It is a tough draw for the first game of the season. It is absolutely a tough draw. These two teams split the 1990 national championship. The Buffs came into the polls, get that year number 1 in both of the polls, the old UPI poll, the AP poll. Of course, we know what happened in that Orange Bowl. That don't kick it to Rocket, but it ends up coming back anyway. They win that game 10-9. but ordinarily a result that you like back in that bowl. Georgia Tech blew the doors off of Nebraska, which is always enjoyable, but it was enough that it actually elevated the polls that they split that. Yet this is the first time they will meet on the field. The Buffs actually will be dressing in sort of a neo-retro uniform to honor the late Bill McCartney with
their traditionals. No neo, no retro. That's what they should be wearing more often.
Right, but it will resemble the 1993, 1994
black, silver, black, or
era.
Gold, black, silver. Give me the gold, black, gold. I need traditional.
You're going to be the get off my lawn guy now.
I'm a purist. I can't wait to see it on Friday night.
That ship has sailed. There's all sorts of combos all over the place. But it is going to be a fun game. It's a big start for them. And I guess when I look at games and I sort of break it down, I always think about it. I was talking with Alex Becker, our producer today, about this. I try to look at it 4 outcomes, right? Can team A win close? Can team A win in a blowout? Can team B win close? Can team B win in a blowout?
Yeah.
Both of these teams could win this game close when you're looking at it. But the blowout, when CU has lost, they have tended to lose in some pretty spectacular fashion. And I don't really see them with so many changes offensively, just blowing the doors off Georgia Tech. And so when you look at that and think, okay, these outcomes, so that's why Tech is a 4.5-point favorite. Before we finish this up, let's look at the special teams as well, because when you look at the special teams, this is one of the things I've no beef with Alejandro Mata. I know how much Deion Sanders loves him. I like the accuracy. I was shocked that they did not try to improve that position, because I cannot believe at elevation in Boulder, if you have a field goal longer than a 40-yard attempt, this team is usually going for it. That's a problem. And nothing has changed there. They tried Buck Buchanan as the kickoff specialist.
No, he's new. Buck is new. Jace Feely is gone.
Yes. Buchanan is the kickoff specialist, though. They tried him on some long ones.
In the spring game.
Yes. Leg distance, not a problem. There's a guy that can hit from 60. That's a problem. So it's going to be Mata, and it does, again, it sort of limits, when you think of these possible outcomes, it limits it, because the 50-yard field goal at the buzzer to win the game, that's not an option for the Buffs with Mata. And that's obviously one of the things that's a concern going forward in special teams too. When you're going to have these games that are close, you got to win on the margins, and the Buffs, at least in that part, I think are behind the 8 ball.
You see me smiling because I agree with you. No one in the stadium will be focused more on a 4th and 8 at Georgia Tech's 42.
Mason Crosby just got hired. Does Mason have any eligibility left?
I think it'll be.
Can we get Mason Crosby a COVID year?
Buck Buchanan, they might run Buck out to try a long.
But it would be at the end of a half or desperation.
Maybe. I don't know.
You think?
I think early on you got to see if you can do it, because otherwise, what are you going to do? Go for it in 4th and 8 again
all year long?
I mean, that's what they've done the last 2 years.
For disaster.
Mata says his leg's stronger. We all understand his career long is 47, I believe, which was Cincinnati, and it would have been good for 48 and a half.
Right.
So again, you're absolutely right. That is something that moving forward has to be addressed. You're at altitude, kicking and punting. Now, the good news is they do have a better punter.
Yeah, Damon Greaves, obviously a better leg. That should be improved, and flipping the field will help. We're over at Peckish here with the Sko Show. Matt Smith joining us. So delighted to have a chance to talk. You and I haven't done this in a couple years now, so it's been a lot of fun. But we'll have to shut this down with the idea for the larger part of the season, because Deion Sanders said that Kaidon Salter will be the starter. I've told everyone all off season, of course he's going to be the starter. There'd be no reason. JuJu Lewis is 17.
He's not even a legal adult yet. That's the crazy part.
Right. And obviously the athleticism is there. You've seen all of it, but also you see him just body type. He looks like he's 17.
Yeah.
And so Sanders said that not only did he plan to put packages in for Lewis, but he hoped that Lewis would even play on Friday. This part is interesting. I've talked about this a little bit, because now we're talking about college football in 2025. The Buffs have to do things that are not driven by football decisions all year long at the most important position in sports, because the concern is, obviously nowadays you get a guy with the pedigree of Julian Lewis, the top quarterback in the country in high school, and if he doesn't play much in his first year, there's a chance he's just going to go somewhere else. Now, the Buffs are doing the Arch Manning plan, and so far that works pretty well with Arch Manning. The idea was, you're going to be behind Quinn Ewers for a year. We know that Quinn Ewers is probably not going to be what we think you will be, but he's better than you are today. right now. And we're going to have some packages for you. We're going to put you in at certain times. And then we know that the keys to the kingdom are yours next year. Salter has no eligibility whatsoever after this season. So clearly, Julian Lewis is the guy in 2026 and going forward. But if you have to sort of find packages, it's different if you're next week, they're blowing out Delaware at halftime. And then you say, all right, you know what, now we're going to put JuJu in for the second half. That's different. But in a game like this, where maybe it's even tight, trying to fit a package in for Lewis,
it's not going to happen.
That's not. I'm with you. I think at a certain point it's going to be hard to happen. I think you're going to have to tell him, much like we heard this about Arch Manning in Texas all last year. When are they going to put Manning in? When are they going to put Manning in? The answer was like when it makes sense.
Yeah,
because he wasn't there for 2024. Arch Manning was in Texas for 2025, where he's the favorite for the Heisman. Same plan for Julian Lewis, but for JuJu, you're still talking to a guy that isn't even a legal adult yet and trying to say, hey, you were the top guy in the country. You turned down USC to come here. You're not going to play all that much this year. How much do you think the Buffs have to walk that fine line of keeping him happy with certain packages, certain amount of play, and not have it hurt the development of this year's team?
I don't think at all. I think if Deion Sanders is an old school guy, and that's what I think is maybe the biggest misconception about him.
Smoke and mirrors.
100. I think it is smoke and mirrors.
But when it comes down to it, he's going to sit down with JuJu and say, "Hey, man, we're about winning. We're about winning football games. This team's yours next year. You need to sit and learn and put a little weight on." And
based on everything we've seen, I haven't seen Julian Lewis take a single rep with the first team offensive line. And conversely, I haven't seen Kaidon Salter take a single rep with the twos. So the writing has been on the wall. And what Coach Prime has said repeatedly, he said it at media day and he said it yesterday. When it's Julian's time, you'll know.
Yeah. And as long as he's on board with that.
And here's the thing. Julian is a very mature 17.
You couldn't have come to this situation.
No.
And not known how this was going to pan out. And the truth of the matter is, for Julian Lewis, I feel very strongly about this, much again like Arch Manning. Julian Lewis's NFL prospects are dramatically improved if he doesn't play this year.
I agree.
Dramatically improved. Yeah. Because look, he can't make a jump anyway.
Yeah.
You have to wait for 3 years after your class in high school graduates. He classified to graduate early. Julian Lewis isn't going to the NFL anytime soon. So he could not play at all this year, have 2 more years of starting for the Buffs before he can even go into the draft.
Yep.
So if that's the plan and everyone's on board, that's good. But we also know the second look, it's much like I've said for years, the best job in the state of Colorado, the best job, is to be the backup quarterback of the Denver Broncos. When John Elway had an interception, there were people going, put in Gary Kubiak. I mean, immediately, right?
Sure.
So every time there's going to be a mistake, or every time the offense doesn't look good with Kaidon Salter, the fan base, it's coming.
Yeah.
It's going to be about, where is JuJu? Do you believe the Buffs have sort of enough internal resilience as a program to basically tell the fan base, like Deion Sanders said, when his time comes, you'll know, and I'll let you know. Until then, it ain't happening.
100%. 100%. And as Coach Prime said at his presser yesterday, he said that, ideally we'd like to get him into the game, but the game will predicate that. And what he was trying to say was, if we've got a big lead in the fourth quarter, it'd be great to get JuJu and the rest of the guys in there. That would be ideal. But it's Georgia Tech. That's not going to happen on Friday.
No.
Maybe against Delaware next week. Maybe that would be ideal. But again, there was a report yesterday that said that sources, I think it was on 3, that said sources said that, this could be a platoon situation. Ain't happening. Coach Prime is too old school for that. And the truth is if you got to play 2, you don't have 1.
Correct.
And the only reason that they would go to JuJu, truthfully, is if Kaidon proves he can't hang.
Yeah.
That would be it.
And I don't expect that to be the case.
I don't either. This is the most talented group he's been around so far, and he's ready for this moment. So I actually think that he's going to have a really nice season. Now, there's a lot of people out there, and some of these college football experts who, kind of geek out on watching some of these lower level schools like a Liberty play, the Chanticleers of Coastal Carolina or whoever it is, and go, oh, well, I'm telling you.
Do you know what a Chanticleer? You probably do. A Chanticleer?
A Chanticleer? Yeah, he's a deer, isn't it?
No, it's like a rooster.
Oh, it's a rooster. Don't they have horns?
It's a very fluffy rooster.
Is it a rooster with horns?
No, there's no roosters with horns. What are you talking about?
But doesn't their logo have some sort of horns? I just heard it clear and thought it was a deer.
No, a Chanticleer is a big fluffy.
Did you know that?
It's a big fluffy rooster. Yeah.
Well, I don't know my mascot.
Well, you know what? There you go.
I learned something new today.
Yeah, they don't run the Chanticleer out. obviously.
No.
Like Ralphie would
Well, they
normally.
don't do that either.
No Ralphie this year, obviously. At least, well, I shouldn't say this year, but no Ralphie in the opener. Ralphie VI is being put out to pasture in the literal good sense. And
It's not much of a change. They haven't been running out behind Ralphie the last 2 years anyway.
This particular Ralphie, the term indifference to running that was used, it's not new. Let's just put it that way. It had been a challenge to get that going. And like I said before, I don't really know how long it takes to train a buffalo, nor do I want to find out. But at the same time, hey, look, here's.
Oh, is this what a Chanticleer is?
Oh, you found a Chanticleer.
That's got to be what it is.
There you go. See?
Oh,
it's not a horn.
I didn't realize. I haven't watched enough Coastal Carolina football.
Oh man, what's wrong with you? You're missing out.
Seriously.
Actually, I have no idea if you're missing out. I haven't watched it either. But what the situation with Ralphie, we'll find out what goes on when Ralphie 7 debuts at some point, presumably during the season. Unfortunate, won't be ready for Friday, but obviously it's the opener. It's Georgia Tech. It's going to be a ton of fun. And I guess last one for you. How do you see this game? I'll put mine up first before we hit up, Matt. I would love to see the Buffs win this game. I think it's possible the Buffs win this game, but I do think that Georgia Tech is going to win. I think Georgia Tech just has there's too much familiarity. And I think that's going to be a challenge for a Buffs team that has to reinvent itself. My hope is that it's a field goal game. And if that's the case, then the Buffs, I think, could find themselves off to still a very promising start in the Big 12.
Yeah, I think this comes down to Kaidon Salter with the ball in his hands in the fourth quarter.
We've never seen him at this level.
Well, that was one thing that Shedeur was so good at that I think a lot of people kind of take for granted is that when the ball was in his hands, even against Kansas State, he was without 4 of his top 6 receivers and still almost led the comeback after Preston Hodge gave up the deep ball to Jace Brown at the end of the game. So I'm going 34-28. I'm going to say it's Colorado, though, coming out on top. I would
love to see it. Kaidon Salter, by the way, as we talked about, tied with Cade Klubnik of Clemson for 66 touchdowns last few years, but even more than that, only 6 players in college football at any level, 60-plus touchdowns since 2023, over 6,438 total offense, 4,700 of it through the air, and 1,600 of it through the ground. A dual threat guy, if he can play very well and he can keep that's the trick, right? He can keep you in the game, but the Buffs defense is going to have to step up. We will find out on a Friday night. That game nationally televised by ESPN. Surprise, surprise. They were the only team in all of college football, every single one of their games nationally televised. And what else is new? The Colorado Buffaloes, essentially America's team in a lot of ways. They have an opportunity to make a big, big statement as the underdog, moving on from Shedeur Sanders, Travis Hunter, the first game in Deion Sanders' career that he will ever coach without one of his sons on the roster. So
on the roster, a
very new frontier on Friday night. We're looking forward to it. Thanks to everybody at Peckish for sending up. Byron and the crew here doing a terrific job keeping us here all afternoon. Of course, smells great, and you want to make sure you check them out both here up on the hill. It's just a couple steps from where the old one was, but 3 times as big. They have an upper area, they have a patio in the back, television everywhere. Great for watch parties, great for any time to come on before the game. If you're here on Friday afternoon, whether you're coming to the game or not, make sure you check it out for all the latest in downability station. If you're down closer to the downtown Denver area in the DTC, all of the same things from Peckish, all of the terrific wings, all of the sauces, all of it available for you. So come check it out at either of their locations. So delighted to have a chance to be part of it. Matt's picking the Buffs. I'm picking Georgia Tech, and I hope I'm wrong. I love it when I'm wrong when those things happen, and I hope it happens again. But Matt, hey, thanks. So much fun to be able to get to do this. We haven't been able to talk about the Buffs in a long time, so a real treat to be able to do this, and especially to be able to do it in Boulder, out right on the hill at Peckish. What a blast. So thanks for everyone watching it, whether you caught it live or you caught it on your own time. Hey, that's why we do it this way. And check it out. For all the rest, you can check out the YouTube page for everything we're putting together, including My Life Sports Today, all of the terrific podcasts. Troy Ranks Broncos podcast, our new magazine available. Don't worry about it. Broncos on the cover, but coverage of every single one of the local college football teams, including the Buffs in it as well, all the way pros to the preps. That's what we do right here at Mile High Sports. So for all of us, for Matt Smith, I'm Sean Drotar, and we say it every single time, Sko Buffs.